The Centauri delegation had arrived at the Interstellar Academy with their usual air of intellectual superiority. Their species had mastered quantum mathematics before humanity had discovered fire, and they never let anyone forget it. Today, they'd brought their most prized cognitive assessment tool, the Tesseract Paradox, a logic puzzle that had stumped civilizations across 3 galaxies. Hannah Chen sat in the back of the examination hall, nervously tapping her stylus against her datapad. She was the only human in the advanced xenological reasoning course, a fact that made her both proud and terrified. Beside her, Evan Torres leaned back in his chair with characteristic confidence, though she could see the tension in his jaw. Remember, Professor Kelvar, a towering Centauri with silver skin that reflected the chamber's ambient light, announced to the assembled students, "This puzzle has been solved by only the most brilliant minds in the known universe. There is one solution, one perfect, elegant solution that demonstrates true higher-order thinking." The holographic display materialized above each student's desk. Hannah stared at the intricate 3-dimensional structure, a maze of quantum gates, probability fields, and non-Euclidean geometrical constraints. The objective was simple: navigate a theoretical particle from point A to point B following the established rules. But the rules themselves were layered, contradictory, and existed in superposition until observed. Around the hall, students from a dozen species bent over their work. The insectoid Zixtar clicked their mandibles in concentration. The gas cloud ethereals pulsed with different colors as they computed. Even Evan, usually unflappable, had his brow furrowed in intense focus. Hannah looked at the puzzle and felt something odd. It was like looking at one of those old Earth optical illusions, the ones where you could see either a vase or 2 faces. Except here she wasn't seeing 2 options. She was seeing many. Her stylus began to move. 20 minutes later, Professor Kelvar announced, "Time is concluded. Please submit your solutions." Across the hall, most students had produced partial answers or had given up entirely. The Zixtar delegate chittered apologetically, having found the puzzle incomprehensible by design. 3. Ethereals had merged temporarily to pool their cognitive resources and managed to map out what they believed was the solution, and Evan had gotten close. His approach was methodical and showed promise, but he'd hit a logical dead end about 2/3 through. Then Professor Kelvar reached Hannah's submission. His silver skin rippled, the Centauri equivalent of a double take. This is unexpected. Hannah felt her stomach drop. She'd failed. She'd embarrassed humanity. You've submitted 12 solutions. The hall went silent. "I'm sorry," Hannah blurted out, standing up so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. "I know you said there was only one, but I kept seeing different paths, and I thought maybe I was supposed to show my work. I probably missed a bunch of obvious ones. I was running out of time and—" "Stop." Professor Kelvar's voice wasn't angry. It was stunned. "You found 12 solutions to the Tesseract Paradox. Is that bad?" Hannah asked, her voice small. The professor's fingers danced across his own datapad, his movements becoming more frantic. The Tesseract Paradox was designed by the Centauri High Council 5 centuries ago. In that time, across thousands of test subjects from hundreds of species, there has been exactly one solution found, the intended solution. He looked up at Hannah, his large black eyes wider than she'd ever seen them. "I need to verify these." His voice had lost all its usual condescension. "If these are valid, explain your methodology." Hannah walked to the front of the class on shaky legs. The hologram enlarged, showing her solutions overlaid in different colors. "Well, the first solution is the standard one, right? You follow the quantum probability gates in their collapsed state, assuming observation." "Correct. That is the known solution. But then I noticed if you treat the gates as remaining in superposition and navigate using wave function interference patterns, you can thread through the non-Euclidean sections without collapsing them. That's solution 2. Evan had stood up now, moving closer. "Holy shit, Hannah." "Solutions 3 through 5 use the temporal paradox loopholes," she continued, warming to her subject. "If you introduce closed time-like curves at these nodes, you can basically send information backwards to yourself and navigate before the maze fully renders in space-time." Professor Kelvar was checking each solution against the quantum engine simulation. Green check marks appeared next to each one. Valid, valid, valid. 6 and 7 are mirror approaches, one using positive probability space, the other using negative probability, which I know isn't supposed to exist, but mathematically, if you treat it as theoretical, debt against future certainty, she trailed off at the professor's expression. Continue, he whispered, 8 through 10. Exploit the recursive nature of the geometry. If you fractal down into the Planck scale structure, there are shortcuts that emerge from the quantum foam itself. And 11 and 12, she hesitated. These use emotional logic. Emotional logic? Yeah, human thing maybe. When I looked at the puzzle, I felt like it was trying too hard to be unsolvable. So I asked myself, what if the puzzle wants to be solved? What if there's an aesthetic solution rather than just a mathematical one? 11 follows the path of maximum beauty, the golden ratio through quantum space. 12 follows the path of minimum resistance, not to physical laws, but to conceptual elegance. The validation engine processed these last two. Valid. Valid. Professor Kelvar sat down, something Centauri rarely did. Around the hall, students were crowding closer to see the display. Evan was grinning like he'd won the lottery. In 500 years, the professor said slowly, across hundreds of species, billions of individuals, one solution, and a human, a species barely a century into interstellar society, finds 12 in 20 minutes. I'm really sorry if I broke something, Hannah said. Should I have stopped at one? The professor made a sound that the translation implant rendered as laughter. Broken something? Miss Chen, you've just demonstrated why humanity has become so unsettling to the older civilizations. Unsettling? We follow rules. We think within systems. We've evolved perfect logic, flawless mathematics, unbreakable laws of reason. He gestured at the holographic solutions floating in the air. You people look at our perfect systems and your first instinct is to find every possible way around them. Then you apologize for not finding more. Evan clapped Hannah on the shoulder. Humanity, fuck yeah, he said quietly. Hannah blushed. I just saw patterns? No, Professor Kelvar said. And for the first time since the Centauri had arrived at the academy, there was respect in his voice. You saw possibilities. That is the most dangerous and valuable trait a species can possess. He stood, his silver skin rippling with what Hannah's implant identified as excitement. Miss Chen, how would you like to help us redesign the Centauri Cognitive Assessment Program? Apparently, we've been testing for the wrong kind of intelligence all along. Hannah looked at the 12 colored paths spiraling through impossible space, each one a testament to humanity's strange gift, the ability to look at the impossible and see a dozen ways to make it work. Sure, she said, but I should warn you, I'll probably find solutions you're not looking for. Professor Kelvar's skin rippled again. This time the translation implant labeled it as joy. That, he said, is precisely what we need.